This is Chris Park with LaneCountySportsOnline.com. I'm speaking with Cottage Grove head football coach Gary Roberts. Coach Roberts, thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk with us a little bit about Cottage Grove football this morning.
Oh yeah, no problem.
First of all, your team is off to an 0-2 start, playing against two out-of-state teams. It's been an interesting schedule that you've had. You've been at Kauai, and then Sutter, California, at the Oregon-California Challenge there at Autzen Stadium. Both of these teams are really good teams, and I think maybe some of our listeners may not know much about them. So can you tell us a little bit about first how the Hawaii game went?
Well, and the experience of the Hawaii game was pretty good the week leading up to it. Obviously we wish the outcome would have been a little different, but we went over there and practiced for the week, and we played the I think they're called the KIF. I think it's the Kauai Interscholastic Federation. We played the KIF champ, who was a quarterfinalist last year in the Hawaii B division, which is like pretty much our level. They have quite a few more students than we do, 1,250 kids in their high school. So
Okay.
it was kind of like playing a 5A school, and we competed really well. We were down some kids either that didn't make the trip because they chose not to fundraise for the trip, or injuries. But the kids that went over there fought hard, and I think at full strength we could have won, but it was a good experience for our kids to go out of state and play a really good, really athletic
Hmm.
team over there in Kauai.
And do you think the Kauai team were they more of a pass team or more of a run team, or mixed it up both?
They mixed it up pretty good. They were a spread team, kind of like us. They used the athletes that they have, and in the first half they tried to throw on us a bunch. We tried to make some adjustments, and then in the second half they tried to kind of run and kill the clock. And they were a good team, and I tip my hat to them.
So let's talk a little bit about the trip itself. It was a football game, but also a trip of a lifetime for some of your players. And so tell us a little bit about how the game came about, the fundraising you did in order to raise money for this event.
Well, the game came about. We talked about playing a game where we traveled for a couple years. We didn't really know where. And one of my assistants, former assistants, who's our head wrestling coach here at the high school, was actually visiting the island. Ended up going to one of the high school games, talked to their athletic director, and the athletic director mentioned that there's only 3 schools on the island, so they kind of play each other in football twice, and that they're always looking for teams to either come and play on the island or make a quick trip to go play. They played a Japanese team a couple weeks before we were over there.
Okay.
So that's kind of how the game came about. We did a lot of fundraising, a lot of raffles, and a lot of you know selling of products and things
Okay.
like that. And we kind of left it up to the individual kids. We kind of organized the fundraisers and then let them do what they needed to do. And we took 30 kids over, 30 kids that were sophomores through seniors, and basically took any 30 that want to go. And it was neat. Of the 30 kids, I think 25 of them had never been on an airplane. So,
Wow, neat.
it was a pretty big experience for some of our kids here in Cottage Grove. And, I think one of the neat things about it is, I hope one day these kids will continue to be able to do travels and things like this. But, we looked at some of the kids that we have, and that might be their one, vacation for a long time. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
so it was worthwhile in that regard.
So a great memory for you and your players. That's great. The logistics for that game must have been very interesting, as far as how to get all your equipment there and how to, get meals done and game day organization. You and your staff probably did quite a bit of planning, just figuring out where we're going to practice, where we're going to warm up. It's going to make a trip down to North Bend not so challenging.
Well, I mean, thank goodness we have a parent club president. Her name is Lisa Hibbard. That she did so much of the organizational part of what we were doing in the meal planning and things like that. It took a huge burden off me and some of the other coaches. And but yeah, it was there was some interesting moments. Let's just put it that way. I mean, they put us originally, like, we were in a park for practice that was probably 25 yards by 25 yards, and then we got moved to an actual football field, but they don't water their football fields in the summer. So their practice fields, they don't water them. So it was literally like a big patch
Wow.
of dead grass. So we made adjustments, and our kids were good about understanding that, hey, we have what we have, and let's just feel fortunate that we're here. And yeah, the logistics of travel were a little interesting. I mean, coaches were checking in, headphones as their check-ins, and we deflated footballs and stuck them in our carry-on bags and things like that.
What do you mean by check-ins?
Well, when we check in our luggage, you get one piece of checked baggage. So, some of the coaches were putting the headphones in their checked baggage and putting deflated footballs in checked baggage, and we had to get a little creative with our checked bags, but it all worked out.
Did anybody have to wear shoulder pads on the plane, saying this isn't a carry-on? I'm actually it's part of my body.
No, it actually worked out. The kids could use their travel bags as their checked luggage.
Okay.
So we were able to put all their clothes and all their gear into one bag. So it just took some logistics of weighing the bags, make sure they were under 50 pounds. A couple of kids had to leave. If they brought 20 pairs of shorts for 5 days, they had to leave them here. So
shoulder pads are more important.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the second game of the year. You played Sutter, California at Autzen in the Oregon, California Challenge. It was your team lost 61-26, but there were some positive things in that game. Tell us a little bit about how that game went. And Sutter is actually a really good team. I think our listeners may not be aware of them. Yeah,
Sutter's kind of a powerhouse program located, from what I'm told, between Redding and Sacramento. It's a county high school. They have 675 students. So you figure just roughly half of them are boys. So you're figuring you got 330, 340 boys. And of those 330 or 40 boys, 120 kids play in the football program. So you're talking about like 33% or whatever of their high school students play football. Yeah. And over almost half of their boys. So football's a huge deal. I mean, they're a Sherwood or a Marist or a Sheldon type program in that area. And it showed. I mean, they came up. They had 33 seniors and 37 juniors, and that's more kids than we have in our entire program, from freshmen to seniors. So.
And weren't they in the North Section state finals?
They were last year. They were in their state championship game last year. I think they've lost like 6 games in 8 years or something like that. I mean, they're a really good program, and I think the score wasn't what we were hoping. They platooned players and sent a bunch of guys at us, and they were physical and big and really well coached, and their kids played hard. And so, our kids hopefully learned that that's what a football program looks like, that puts the time in. And, I think it was a little eye-opening experience for the coaches and the kids, but for me it was a positive to show our kids that if you want to be a Sheldon, a Marist, a Sherwood, a Baker, that's what it's going to take. So.
Okay. This is Chris Park at LaneCountySportsOnline.com. I'm talking with Gary Roberts. He's a head football coach at Cottage Grove High School. Talk a little bit about your team from that game last week. Your quarterback, Scotty Hittner, he had a good game, 232 yards against Sutter. 8 different players have caught passes in the last 2 games, so it looks like you're spreading the ball around a little bit offensively. That looks like the strength of this team.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of that is because of injury, that we're forcing guys to have to come in and play. Sometimes, some of them are young sophomores and things like that. But Scotty's doing a pretty good job of trying to get the ball to the people that are open and taking what the defense gives him. I thought in Kauai he forced things a little bit too much, but I thought last week when we played Sutter he did a much better job of just taking what the defense gives him. And we've got some athletic kids when we're healthy, and that's kind of the main issue right now is health with us.
Okay, so let's look ahead to this next week. Your team is at North Bend. This is your 3rd game away from home. Last year your team won at home against a good North Bend team that ended up, I believe, losing to Baker in the state finals. So what can you tell us about this year's North Bend team?
Well, they have a lot of kids back from that state finals team. They're missing their quarterback, they lost their quarterback from last year. He graduated, but they moved one of their receivers there who's really athletic, Cameron Lucero. And our kids know that North Bend's going to be really fired up to play us. I mean, they lost 2 games last year, and one of them was to us, and it really wasn't that close from about the first 5 minutes in. And with all those kids back, I'm sure they've had this game circled on the calendar for a while, and they're going to come after us. And I hope our kids are prepared. We're going to work real hard this week to get them prepared. But we're going to have our hands full on Friday, that's for sure.
What kind of offense does North Bend run?
North Bend runs spread offense, a little similar to what we run. They probably use their quarterback a little bit more in the run game, but it's pretty similar to what we run.
Okay. So after the North Bend game, you're at home for the first time, technically at your home field. I think you may have been home at Autzen Stadium against Sutter, California. But, do you think the challenging non-league schedule has been helpful in preparing your team for the Sky-M League play?
Well, if we can get back healthy, then yes, absolutely. I mean, our kids have seen two really good quality programs. They're going to see another one on Friday. So if we can get some of these guys healed up a little bit, and they're all kind of weird injuries. We don't have anything that, we've got we've got like 5 broken hands right now. I mean, I don't know what we're doing to get kids to break their hands, but if we can get some of these kids healed up, then I think the non-league schedule will definitely be worth it for us. Hoping when we get in the league, our kids are comfortable, and our opponents, it almost, the game slows down for them a little bit.
What would you say the strengths of your team so far this season are?
Well, I think the strengths of our team would probably be our athleticism. We have athletic kids. We have pretty good athletes even down into the sophomore class. They're just not. They'd be great JV athletes, some of them, but they're forced to be playing varsity right now. But I think we're fairly athletic between Oscar Rauda and Brad Bonds that are returning first-team All-League receivers. And if Malik Richardson can get healthy from a knee injury, he started for us both ways last year in some games, and so at receiver and at defensive back. So when we get all of our horses on the field, I think we're going to be pretty tough to stop.
Okay. This is Chris Park with LaneCountySportsOnline.com. I'm talking with Gary Roberts. He's the head coach at Cottage Grove High School. Just a few more questions here, Coach Roberts. What players on defense have impressed you on your team so far this year?
Well, we have a couple returning starting defensive linemen, Tyler Lehman and Darren Voigt, and they've been doing a pretty good job. Darren Voigt's a $175, $180 playing D-line, but he really gets after it out there, and he's tough to maintain blocking, and he flies around. I think one of our linebackers, Tanner Allen, he's a new kid to the program, played as a freshman and sophomore, and didn't play last year as a junior, but he's back. He's been doing a really good job. And then Oscar Rauda and Brad Bonds, who I talked about on offense, they're we've kind of bounced them between strong safety, outside linebacker positions, and then occasionally they move out and play corners or frees, and depending on what our opponents try to do. And I think those guys have done a real fine job for us.
What the areas of improvement or does your team need to work on so far that you've seen in the first 2 games?
Without a doubt, it's leadership.
Okay.
We haven't had anybody. Last year we had. We only had 8 seniors last year, but 3 of our seniors were the best leaders we've had in my 6 years here. So they did a really good job of leading us and taking care of all the little things in the program. This year we haven't seen that from anyone yet. We're still kind of waiting for it. I think we have kids that are kind of looking around at other kids to lead instead of taking on that role themselves. So that's the number one area right now that we need to improve on, and we need to do it in a hurry because we're 2 games in, going on game 3, so we need some guys to step up.
Okay, this is Chris Park with LaneCountySportsOnline.com and speak with Gary Roberts. He's the head coach at Cottage Grove High School. One last question, Coach Roberts, before we cut you loose. Really appreciate your time here this morning. Can you name 1 or 2 other players from the Sky-M League, other than your own players, that you've probably got your eyes on for as a Player of the Year candidate, or somebody that you're really going to have to kind of circle on when your team meets those opponents? 1 or 2 other players in the league.
Without a doubt, one would be Bo Heiberger at Elmira.
Okay.
He's a big, fast kid, and he plays some running back for them, and he's a linebacker. And I think he's going to play somewhere next year, whether it's a Western or a Portland State or somewhere. He's going to go somewhere and play linebacker, and he's a really good kid, and he's a really good football player. Another kid that comes to mind immediately is Cole Horner, who's the quarterback. defensive back at Sweet Home. He's one of their few returning starters, and he was a real good player last year. Throws the ball really well, runs really well at the quarterback position, and then on defense, he really flies around and covers the field well. He played a safety, I believe, for him last year. So, those are definitely two kids that we need to know where they're at when we go into game preparation for Elmira and Sweet Home.
Okay. All right. Well, again, Coach Roberts, thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us. We know you got classes to get to. This is Chris Park, LaneCountySportsOnline.com. I've been speaking with Coach Gary Roberts. Good luck to your team this Friday at North Bend.
Thank you very much.